Happy coding.
Hey there, Kevin here, and welcome to our next video in our series of Intro to Web Development. In this video, we're going to learn about if statements, which let you sort of make decisions in your code and do one thing or the other based on the state of your program. So far, we've learned quite a bit. We're adding quite a bit to our tool belt. We've learned about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we've learned about getting input from users and providing output, so doing DOM manipulation, all that good stuff. And this builds on that to start making your code be able to like make decisions and do different things based on either user input or other sorts of input that it can get. So as always, I think the best way to talk about this stuff is just to dive in. So I do recommend reading through this page first, just to get like a sense of what we're talking about. And but other than that, I'm not going to have a bunch of slides or something. I'm just going to dive right in. So I'm going to what am I going to do? I'm going to open up NeoCities, and I'm just here in my Scratch directory that I've been working from pretty much this entire time. And right now I have a index.html file, and it contains a style tag and a script tag. I'm doing that mostly, honestly, out of laziness. I could put this in its own CSS file, and I could put this in its own JavaScript file, but just for the sake of having it all in one place while I talk, I'm going to put it all in this file. So this content so far is not super involved. It's got a couple of HTML tags. I've got an H1, a couple BRs, and a button, and then an output. And then in the JavaScript, what do? I get the output element, and then I set its inner text when I click the button. So that ends up looking like this, where I have loading at the beginning, and I click hello, and I get hello. So this doesn't cover everything that we've learned about so far, so I'm not getting input, but this does have sort of DOM manipulation in it and like a JavaScript function. So that's where I'm going to start. So I think just to set this up, I'm going to move my editor around to match like how I normally code. So I'm going to have my website sort of on the right here, and then my editor on the left. So right off the bat, I think one thing I'm going to change is I'm going to get rid of this button just because I don't want to have to click it every time. So I think instead of using the like on click callback, I will instead, actually I'm just going to get rid of that button entirely and get rid of some of this. And instead of having the on click attribute call the function, I'm going to use the on load attribute. So this is very similar to clicking a button, except instead of waiting for the user to click a button, I am saying as soon as the page loads, call this function. And what did I call the function? Say hello. Say hello. And okay, so now I would expect when I refresh, this will not have a button, and it should still say hello down here. And it does. Okay. And that is coming from the JavaScript itself. So the HTML content is loading, but as soon as that page loads, like instantaneously, before I even have time to actually see it, it calls this function and replaces the inner text with hello. So I have that working. Okay. I'm also going to get, this is kind of annoying. Sure. Actually, I'm just zoomed in. That's the problem. Okay. So to talk about if statements, I want to maybe go back a little bit and talk about values and variables, which we've talked about quite a bit. So I'm going to give myself some white space, and I am going to create maybe like a new variable that points to a value. So I'll say like let, I don't know, message equals, I won't say hello anymore. I'll say like, hi there. And so I have created a message variable and pointed it at the value, which is a string, hi there. And I can now use this message here, just like I could any other value. So I'll save that and refresh. And I get hi there. And that's just a value that I'm storing in a variable. And I could make this a number. You know, these are types of values. So that was a string. This is a number. And I can use that. So this says 42 because the value is 42. So those are just two different types of value, strings and numbers. And I am going to introduce you to a third type of value, which is called a Boolean. And it's kind of a fun sounding word, but it's spelled like this, Boolean, Boolean. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's named after a dude. And this type of value, similar to how a number can be any number and a string can be any text, a Boolean can either be true or false. It can't be like maybe, it can't be sometimes, it can't be I don't know. It can either be true or false, and you literally write true or false. So true. And notice that I don't have like quotation marks around it, anything like that. It's a like keyword in JavaScript, and it means this is a Boolean of true. So if I save this, now my message is true, and I'm still saying inner text equals message. So let's see what happens if I refresh. I just get the text true because the Boolean is true, and so it's printing out like the spelling true to the page. So this can also be false. And if I refresh, it's false now. And that might not seem super useful. Like, why would you want something that's only ever true or false? But it will come in handy in a second. But before I get there, I'm going to talk through a couple of different like concepts that come in handy when you're dealing with Booleans. So one of them is the idea of an inequality. And so I am going to change this just a little bit. I'm going to say, instead of message, I'll say like, this is like, I don't know, is morning. And this is just a variable name. It's nothing special. I'm just calling it is morning because I want this to be like the value of whether it's before noon or after noon. And maybe I'll change this to like, is it morning? And then a colon, and I'll use the append operator that we kind of talked about before, and I'll say is morning. All right. So now my text over here will be either is it morning false or is it morning true. Okay. And the idea of an inequality comes from the fact that I don't have to hard code this true or false. Hard code just means like typing out like this will always be true. And instead I can use an inequality. So let me maybe store a different variable. I'll say like let, I don't know, hour, maybe current hour. And I'm going to pretend that just to make it easy on myself that we're in like the 24-hour clock. I don't want to deal with AM or PM. So like 6 a.m. is 6, noon is 12, 1 p.m. is 13, 5 p.m. would be 17, and like 11 p.m. would be 23. So I'll say like it's 8 a.m. And now that I have this value, I can use it in an inequality. And so instead of writing true here, I'll say is morning is equal to the value that is returned when I compare current hour to 12. So I'm asking, is the current hour less than 12? This whole thing is called a Boolean expression because it evaluates to a Boolean. So current hour less than 12 is either true or false. You can't be like maybe less than 12. You can be equal to 12, but that's not less than 12. If I do less than or equal to, you know, I could do it that way too. But I'm saying is morning equals the value, which is the Boolean expression, current hour less than 12. So if I save this and I refresh, well, that won't be very exciting because nothing will change because it's already true. But if I change this to like 14 for 2 in the afternoon, then if I refresh over here, now I will see false. So there's a couple of other things I could do here. So I could say like, I don't know, like let is noon equals and I want to compare, like, is current hour equal to 12? And the way I do that is with triple equals, so equals, 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 and then a 12. If I just use a single equals, then I am assigning current hour to be 12, and then I'm assigning is noon to be current hour, which is 12. So you need the triple equals in there to compare. So this is saying, like, is the current hour equal to 12? And if it is, then it's noon. If it's not, then it's not noon. And I could do other things like, I don't know, I could do like is not noon maybe. And this would be a exclamation point, which is the not operator. And so you're saying, is the current hour not 12? It's maybe a goofy example, but there's Boolean operators that you can use. It's not just the less than symbol, greater than symbol, all that good stuff. So for more information there, I'd say go back and read some of these Boolean operators and stuff. But for now, I'm going to stick with my is morning and my less than operator here. So let me save that and just double check. Yeah, okay. And the reason that this starts to get interesting is with another concept. So like I'm usually probably not going to print a Boolean directly to the page. Instead, I'm going to use that Boolean and do something with it. So in this case, what do I want to do? I want to, maybe I will give myself some room here. And instead of always saying output.element.innerText equals this whole thing, I'm going to use a new concept called an if statement. And an if statement kind of looks like a function, but it's not. It's called a control flow. So an if statement takes a Boolean, and whether the Boolean is true or false decides whether it runs a block of code or not. So in this case, I will say if, the keyword if, and then a parenthesis. And in this case, I want is morning. And I'm going to close my parenthesis. And I'm going to have open curly brace. And then I'm going to give myself a little bit of white space. And then a closing curly brace. So this is saying if the Boolean is morning is true, then do whatever is in inside these curly braces. So in this case, I'm going to steal this line of code, I think, and way too zoomed in. Actually, I'll just rewrite the whole thing, but I'm going to delete this line. So I'm saying if is morning, then output element.innerText equals good morning. And I will save that and refresh. And okay, so right now, what? I have current hour is 14, so 14 is not less than 12. So this should be false. So this should not say good morning. And what do I have it down here? I just say loading. I'm going to keep it that way for now. So save and refresh. And I still see loading because this line of code is not running because is morning is false. So let's see what happens if I say, you know what, it's actually, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's too early, but I'll save that and refresh. And indeed, I see good morning because the code is saying, first it prints, it creates this variable, current hour is 5. It creates this Boolean, which is the value returned by the inequality. Is the current hour less than 12? 5 is less than 12, so is morning is true. Then I get my output element and I say if is morning is true, so this line of code is executed, and I print good morning to the page where I replace the inner text of that element. So that is an if statement. It's doing something or not based on your code, based on the state of the world, in this case, in the current hour variable. So that is either doing something or not. And that's handy, but let's say that I wanted to expand this and I wanted to say, like, if it's not morning, then I say, I don't know, good night. And there's a couple ways I can do this. One way is I could say if not is morning. So I'm using a Boolean expression, but this will work, but it's kind of annoying, and especially if you have a lot of different if statements and booleans going on. So you generally don't do it this way, especially if you're dealing with like one boolean and you want to do something if it's true and a different thing if it's false. Instead, you use what is called an else statement. And the way an else statement works is, well, you use the else keyword and then an open curly brace, some white space, closing curly brace, and inside of those curly braces, you put whatever code you want to run if the boolean is false. So in this case, I'll say output element dot inner text equals good night. Okay, so it's still 5 in the morning, so I should still see good morning. But if I change this to, I don't know, 11 p.m. and I refresh, now I see good night. Okay, so that is an if statement and an else statement. If else, it's often called. And this is really common because it's really common to like make a decision. You either go like left or right. If something is true, you do something. If something else is, if that is false, you do something else. And that's kind of how it looks like. So I'm gonna maybe clean up my code just a little bit here, and I'll introduce like a new, I don't know, kind of shortcut here, which is right now I am storing my Boolean in a variable. And I'm doing that mostly to like make it really explicit that this is a step in itself. So getting this value is a step, and then storing in a variable is what I'm doing sort of separately from my if statement. But it's also really common to cut out this step of creating a variable and instead having the inequality directly in the if statement. So I'm going to move that down here, and I'm going to delete my isMorning variable. So now my code says first create a variable, call it current hour, and store 23 in it, get the output element, and then I say if the current hour is less than 12, then I do this, otherwise I do this. And this like style of putting the inequality directly in the if statement is really common because it sort of reads like a human would kind of say it. So instead of like if is morning, I'm saying if the current hour is less than 12, then I do this, otherwise I do this. And that's kind of how you can like think about how your code is structured, how your code will flow. And if I save that and refresh, nothing should really change because I just like kind of moved my code around a little bit. So now let's say, I don't know, it's 7 a.m. And if I refresh, now it's good morning. So this is an if else statement. I've got an if statement and an else statement. And this is, you know, again, really common because it's really common to do either one thing or another thing. But in this case, I only ever say like good morning or good night. So let's say it's like 1 in the afternoon, so 13. And if I refresh over here, I'm going to say good night. But like, I don't know, I don't go to bed at 1 p.m. So I want to do more than just two things. And the way I can do that is with another sort of structure here called an else if statement. And that looks, well, like this. I will go below my if statement and I'll say else if, and I don't know what's a good like cutoff. Current hour is less than, so like it's between noon and let's say 5-ish. I'll say that's 17, right? So if it's before 5 o'clock, then I will say output element dot inner text equals good afternoon, maybe. Okay, and I'll clean this up just a little tiny bit and save that and refresh, and I should see good afternoon. And the reason this works is when you have an if, else sort of block like we have here, the code reads through each if statement and only executes the first one that is true. So in this case, it's saying if the current hour is less than 12, well, current hour is 13, so it's not. So it skips down, goes to the else if, checks this one. Else if is the current hour less than 17, 13 is less than 17, So it executes this statement and then skips down to the bottom. And if I had more code here, it would keep trucking. So if I had, I don't know, like alert hello, maybe, this will then run after it sort of skips over anything that's below the block that it executed. So it will not say good night. It'll only say good afternoon. And then it'll say alert. So let me save that and refresh. And I see good afternoon and hello. So in this case, I don't actually need this alert, but the code will continue executing after the if statement. So to, I don't know, sort of explain a couple of other concepts, I'm going to maybe expand this a bit. First off, I'm getting bored of my messages, so maybe I'll add emojis here. This is not really part of it, but, you know, it's fun. So I'll say good morning, good afternoon, maybe with the sun, maybe sunshine, and good night. This is really important web development content right here. You are paying tuition to learn how to put emojis in your code. If I refresh, all right, I've got a sun now. And the other thing I want to do is expand, like I only have morning, afternoon, and night. So let's say it's, I don't know, like 2 in the morning. In that case, I'm going to say good morning because 2 is indeed less than 12. So maybe I want another one that says like, if current hour is less than, like, I don't know, let's say 4, then I will say something like output element dot inner text equals go back to bed. And I'll have a little bed emoji maybe. Yeah, that's cute. And I'm going to save this, and I want you to sort of look at this code and try to, well, I want to fix my typo first. Try to kind of reason about what it will do. And so, I don't know, take your time, pause this video if you want to, and think about what this will do. And I'm going to save, and I'm going to refresh. And what time is it? It's 2 in the morning. So I'm going to refresh. And I still see good morning. Why is that? It's because the way I've structured my if statements, I have if current hour is less than 4, it is, so 2 is less than 4, so I say output element dot inner text equals go back to bed, but then the code continues below this if statement, and the next thing I have is another if statement. So I say if current hour is less than 12, 2 is less than 12, then I set the inner text to good morning, and so it sort of overwrites what I did above here. And then it sort of skips to the end because these are all else and else. So what I need to do is convert this into an else if. So now my code says if the current hour is less than 4, then do this. Otherwise, check if current hour is less than 12. Otherwise, so it'll only do this and then skip to the end. So if I save and refresh, now I see go back to bed. And so what I'm trying to, I don't know, highlight there is that like your syntax or like what you type really, really matters. And so you have to make sure that like it's if, else if, else if, else. Otherwise, like things will break. The other thing you have to be aware of is the order of your checks matters. So let me see if I can come up with a good example. I will maybe say, well, maybe I'll first highlight that. Let's say I want this to be like, I don't know, 6. And if my current hour is 6, then I want to say good morning, but I only want to say good morning if the current hour is greater than or equal to 4. 4 a.m. is like the absolute earliest that I will call morning. And this check only checks if the current hour is less than 12. I don't have to check that the current hour is also greater than or equal to 4. I could. Current hour is greater than or equal to 4. And I'll use the AND operator, which is covered in this week's written content. So I could do this. If the current hour is greater than or equal to 4 and it's less than 12, so it's between 4 and 12, then I say good morning. But I don't have to do that because of like the structure of the if statements. So if current hour is less than 4, if I'm checking if the current hour is less than 12, I already know that it's not less than 4 because this check came first. And the only reason I would come down to this check is if this one was false. So I can sort of assume that anything up here was already checked, and I can already I can like factor that into my later if statements. So by the time I get down here to current hour is less than 12, I already know that the current hour is greater than 4. So this is handy, but it also means that the order is really important. So let me rearrange this a little bit and say, I'm going to move this, and I'm going to say if the current hour is less than 12, else if blah, blah, blah. And so now the way my code reads is I say, if the current hour is less than 12, then I say good morning. Otherwise, if my current hour is less than 4, then I say go back to bed. Otherwise, if the current hour is less than 17, which is 5 p.m., I say good afternoon. And if none of that is true, then I say good night. And so let's see, this will work for now, I think, because the current time is 6. So if I refresh, I get good morning. But if it's like 2 a.m. and I refresh, I still get good morning. Why is that? It's because of the order of the if statements. The first thing I check is if current hour is less than 12, 2 is less than 12. Therefore, I do this, and then I'm done. The computer does not even check any of these cases. It just goes down to the bottom and keeps on trucking. So your order really matters when you're dealing with if statements. So just double check that the order that you are checking different values is like logical that way. Okay, so that's basically about as far as I want to go with if statements. If statements let you make decisions in your code and kind of do branching logic and either go like left or right, if or else, or go like left, middle, or right, more options with if, else if, and else. Maybe the last thing I'll do is just for funsies, I will, instead of hard coding this too, maybe I'll get it from the user at first. So sure, maybe I will say, like, what time is it? And I'll say like 24-hour. Sure, this is just an example. And then I'll have an input, and I'll say input ID equals. I'll just say input for now. And I think I'll just leave it at that. So let's see if that does what I want it to. And okay, I've got an input. I don't actually do anything with it yet. And okay, I am going to need a button now. All right, it's getting a little annoying. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. Whoops. But I'm going to have a button. Button on click equals, and in this case, I'm going to rename my function. I'll say, maybe say hello is fine, actually. Say hello. And I'll say, I don't know, submit. /button. Okay, I don't actually do anything with the input still. So this will just do the same thing that it already did when I loaded the page. But all right, let me change this to, instead of hard coding this to 2, I am going to get the value from my input. So I'm going to say let input element equals document.get element by ID. And I called that input, I think. And current hour equals input element dot value. This is like kind of using the techniques that we've learned over the last couple weeks. And now I am going to refresh over here, and I want to no longer call say hello on load. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I will save that and refresh. And okay, it says loading here. I could change that to like just a blank or something, but now I can say what time is it. And so I'll say, what time is it actually? It's 12. It's actually 12. So I'll say submit, and it says good afternoon. Okay. If I change this to 6, it will say good morning. And let's see if I change it to like 11 p.m. and I hit submit. Now it says good night. And that works. And so this is why if statements are helpful, because, I don't know ahead of time what time it is for the user. And this lets me make my page kind of dynamic based on the input I'm getting from my user. I'm not just taking input and like outputting it directly to the page like we did last week. I am getting input from the user and doing some like data processing with it, in this case, an if statement, and that is deciding my output. Maybe the last thing I'll do is I'll kind of try to break this. So I'm asking what time is it, 24 hour, and I can do things like, I don't know, like the current time is yellow. And actually maybe first I'll say 3 to clear it out. And okay, so go back to bed. So now I'll say yellow. And what do you think this will do? Any guesses? If we were sort of live, I would like call on someone and say, what do you think? So I don't know. What do you think? What will happen if I say it's yellow o'clock? And I'll hit submit and I get good night. Why is that? Well, it's because if I go to my if statement, I get the current hour, which is yellow. Is yellow less than 4? No, that doesn't even make sense as a question. So that's false. Is yellow less than 12? No. Is yellow less than 17? No. Otherwise, I say goodnight. So this is kind of the fallback. If none of these are true, which might be true if like I get nonsense, then I say goodnight. So there's other ways I can handle that. I can like check if it's a number and print something out like an error message, but that's sort of outside the bounds. I just want to sort of highlight that might happen if you have weird data, is your if statements might fall through to the else. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I want to break this week up into a few different videos. So in this video, we learned about if statements, which let you make decisions in your code. And we got a little bit into getting input from the user and feeding that into the if statements to make your page dynamic. And we'll build on that in the next few videos. But for now, thanks for watching. And as always, happy coding.